viewers. You are welcome to our program, Nigeria Decides 2023. This is a set or a series of programs that will be running right up to the 2023 elections. And all of them will be directed at ensuring we have an election that's free, fair, credible, and violence free. Our topic for today is the importance of civic culture in terms of ensuring the elections go smoothly. We are worried about some of the trends we are seeing as the campaign heats up. Candidates, some of them, are having difficulties in terms of accessing the mass media, accessing rally grounds, simply running down the streets in their motorcades. And there are increasing reports of thuggery and violent attacks on candidates that may not be seen as desirable in certain parts of the country. We are very concerned about these trends. And it is for that reason that we are looking at the question of the level playing ground towards the elections. This program is brought to you by the National Working Group on Peace Building and Democracy. This is an NGO to which some of us belong to, including two of us on this panel. The program is sponsored by the United States Institute of Peace. On our panel today, we have John Cardinal Onaikan, the Archbishop of Abuja, retired, who is one of our leaders in the National Working Group. Yeah, welcome, Your Eminence.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Nwokolo, who is from Next Year. Next Year is a policy think tank that does a lot of very exciting work on policy matters. They have been doing great work on electricity and the power sector, a sector that we Nigerians find impossible to understand why it's not functioning. They've been explaining it. They've done a lot of work on violence in our society, and they've recently ventured into the dangerous terrain of election polling. Welcome, Dr. Nwokolo. Then we have Cynthia Mbamolu, who is from this famous NGO called Not Too Young to Run, YAGA. They've been making waves by their ability to, in this difficult National Assembly of ours, propose and get a bill passed to lower the age of people going into politics. They've been out on the streets mobilizing Nigerians for free and fair election. We also have a studio audience of 10 that you'll come to meet. Most of them are young Nigerians working on peace issues, essentially concerned about having this level playing ground for peaceful elections. They will also be posing questions to the panel. Before proceeding, Your Eminence, if you could just talk to the audience a bit, a couple of minutes on the National Working Group. Who are we and what do we do?
Thank you very much, Prof. Even before this program started, you will notice I was a bit reluctant to take on this assignment to explain to the people what is this animal called National Working Group. The name is even very pompous. When you hear of a national working group, you would think it's a group that is very, very important, very, very well known, with mighty influence. But from my experience of the group, I have not seen it in that way. So even right now, it still appears to me like a mystery. How I don't know how the group started, or even how I got drawn into it. You can see, therefore, when you ask me to tell the audience what is National Working Group, you will not expect too much from me to expect, except to say that somehow I just find myself drawn into a group of Nigerians, largely elite. They are not poor people, and generally a little bit older, not young people. Uh-huh. And the beautiful thing about it, coming from different backgrounds. We had northerners, we have people, not too many from the south, largely north, but people like me who am not north. I come from Kaba, but I'm based largely in Abuja, so we are middle way. And especially with regard to the two major identity, uh, identity factors that in Nigeria, namely ethnicity and religion, is mixed. And since I got involved with them, I've really been very happy to be part of what they are doing, because what I noticed and what attracted me to continue staying is that this is a group of Nigerian elites who, as I said, are not very poor people, but are clearly not satisfied with the status quo for good reasons, not for selfish reasons, but for the simple reason that they believe that this country ought to be better than it is, and that the level of poverty ought to reduce, that the needs of the poor ought to be better addressed. And so many of us, coming from different angles, agreeing on this is very, very important for me. And it's on the basis of that that actions are taken, projects are put forward, and what can we do? And obviously, with the elections coming, knowing that normally election should be an opportunity for the people of Nigeria to pass a verdict on how this country has been run up to now, and also pass a verdict on what they want in the future from those who happen to emerge as candidates for election. So the program we are now run is very much part and parcel of what we have been dealing with. I must say that I noticed that there's a kind of a special programmatic partnership with the group that she mentioned now, United States Institute for Peace. Yes. And we have been even trying to exactly properly situate this body. We don't work for them. They don't pay me. I don't know whether they are paying Prof, but
they are not.
I have not received a single dollar from USIP. Rather, I'm happy that USIP is interested in what we are doing, which means that there are people who are not Nigerians out there who are genuinely interested in the efforts we are making to create a better Nigeria. And we continue to believe that that is possible. So that is the National Working Group. It's a small group. We have been thinking about expanding it, both in scope and in extension. So maybe even to include more younger people than we who are on our way out.
Thank you very much, Your Eminence.
I'm open for correction, please, Prof.
No. We're quite happy with your introduction of the National Working Group, because it's clearly from the heart and is accurate. So we are very happy with that. So back to our theme today, which is the question of harmony and civic culture. Cynthia, elections in a democracy are moments where people exercise their choice through the vote. So by definition, it is peaceful. By definition, everybody should have access as a candidate to say and do what they want. But we have concerns in this country. What are some of your concerns as we move towards the elections?
Yeah, thank you, Prof. I think you made a very important point around elections, and His Eminence mentioned is a period of verdict. The whole concept of elections, at the center, at the core, is the concept of freedom, the freedom to choose, the freedom to participate, the freedom to express yourself within the system. And if we come from the prism of freedom and look at the context that we have, I would say one major concern that we were observing in the field and we're seeing is first the unequal playing field for political actors. So I'll look at the contenders. When I talk about unequal playing field, looking at it from issues around intimidation and restriction to free participation for all candidates across different states. That for me is one major issue, and it's an issue because we can't talk about having credible and successful elections if it's not conducted in an atmosphere of freedom and an atmosphere of peace. Because when you begin to limit or restrict a section or sector of the society from participating, you create a sense of dissatisfaction and disenfranchisement, which begins to form agitation. So what are we seeing? Some states you have parties who are dominant in the state restricting others. A simple case, we've had reports from Rivers, reports in Ebonyi, reports from Anambra, reports from states, even in Kano, where you're having dominant parties or parties who are ruling in the state, restricting other contenders from accessing things like public facilities for campaigns and rallies, or even putting restrictions on how you use the media. We've gotten reports from states like Lagos where different parties can't put their posters, as simple as your campaign posters in some locations are torn down. Thugs are taking over. So that is one major concern as it relates to equal participation for the candidates and parties. The other part is conversation around the content and the quality of campaigns. Because we as a nation, this is a diverse country. And when we talk around elections, the beauty of elections in a diverse country like this is that campaigns and utterances are driven by content, they are driven by issues and not identity, not personality. So when we have conversations around campaigns and we're having utterances that promote division rather than unifies us, it becomes a major challenge for us. So for these elections, one major worry is that we're seeing utterances that are more divisive than unifying. We're seeing campaigns that are lacking in content, but rather focusing on issues that are more divisive than issues that concerns the average Nigerian. And unfortunately, young people are playing to these issues. So you go on social media now, we're even lacking tolerance. So the beauty of election is you have contending and opposing views, but we debate these issues, we understand each other, and we come to a place where we agree to disagree and agree again. But you go on social media now, you go on Twitter, there's this common term, violence, like you see, we can't tolerate each other. So for those articulating or batified or obedient or the conquerors, it's almost like we're dividing across identities that do not deal with the core issues, which is what do each candidate have for us as a people? What do these parties have for us as young people? And we're falling into this division, forgetting that at the end, what matters is the harmonious coexistence of us as a people towards achieving development. So it's unfortunate that this is also becoming a trend. And I believe that for young Nigerians, we need to wake up and realize that this is about our nation. It's not about these identities. It's about the issues that affect us as a people. So for me, this is the other way. I think the third for me is the quality of the process. Because if the process is questioned, if the process does not inspire trust or create doubt, then people begin to doubt and people begin to look for reasons to exclude themselves from participating. So at the end, the quality and the content of the process, its credibility, is very important in inspiring confidence to participate.
Thank you so much for that brilliant analysis. When I grow up, I'll learn to be such a good analyst like you. Dr. Nwokolo, you have been tracking the issue of violence in our politics in general, but also specifically as the elections approach. What are you finding?
So let me start by the last poll we conducted, which you mentioned. One of the questions we asked Nigerians who participated in that was, what is it that you know, what is the most important thing for you in this election? Number one was insecurity. So to many Nigerians, I think it's got around 40%. To many Nigerians, they feel they are insecure. And to most people, it will affect the way they will vote. That was what our polling showed. Now, if you look at the 6 geographical zones in Nigeria, each zone is dealing with one form of violence or the other. The Southeast, issues of secession agitation, or with the coming of unknown gunmen terrorizing the area. You go to the Southwest, kidnapping and court groups. You heard of that area? You go to the South region, court groups and piracy. You come to the North Central, farmer header and a bit of banditry. You go to the Northwest, banditry. You go to the Northeast, terrorism. Now, what is happening is that these are already existing violent conflicts, and they are playing a role in this election. One may ask, how can you say they are playing a role? How can you be able to aggregate the two and to find out how each is fueling the other? Let me use the Southeast for an instance. Just like Cynthia mentioned, what is happening in the Southeast? You find out that politicians who are likely to lose the election, or who think their popularity is not recognized by the people, are using unknown gunmen to terrorize areas where they think their support is very low. So you find out, even in social media, if some of you could recall, about 3 weeks ago, some people attacked a particular village in Enugu, where people were having a meeting for a particular party. Let me not mention it, but I'm sure we saw it. And the people kept shouting, "We don't want a particular ethnic group here." Meanwhile, the party that was having that village meeting or party event, the man who should be from that party is from that zone. So why are you attacking your own people and using another name to cover it? So you find out that politicians are now using existing conflict to cover what they are doing. That's what the South is. Now go to the South. As of 2 weeks ago, both in Delta and Rivers State, there's a spike in court activity. Court groups are killing people, trying to, cover an area, hold a territory. Because as they are moving from being militants to becoming court members, what they are doing is that they are looking for relevance, they are looking for political relevance. And politicians are cashing in on their access to violence to cover an area. That is for the South region. If we go to the Southwest, of course, Lagos is, as she just mentioned, is from the data we are tracking, Lagos might likely produce the highest violent incidents in the country. Why is this so? Because wherever you have a kind of power parity between two political parties, they are becoming dominant. The threat is easier. Like in Lagos, we know what the dominant political party. However, it's equally that if you look at what happened in 2019, where some people were stopped from voting by talks and some other violent groups in Lagos, and looking at this election now, and then with the incoming of a third force, it means that in Lagos, the former dominant party in Lagos will be contending against two other groups, with one of them going for a dominant second highest ethnic group in that zone. So Lagos, we need to watch out for Lagos. That is very important. Now, if you come to the North Central and Northwest, banditry is everywhere. Initially, when we were looking at the election, how violence will play out, I was thinking this election, unlike 2015, which we knew there were two major divides, ethnicity and religion played a role. But in 2019, it was easier to understand that the two dominant people were coming from the same religion and from the same ethnic group. So we didn't see that kind of ethnic religious narrative. But this time around, I was thinking we're going to have something like 2019. But no, this is quite different. It's quite different that you have young people who think that whoever they support must win. So you have a kind of a clash of civilization between rural and urban dwellers. So people are coming up with ideas and they're thinking we must win. Now, if you take Zamfara and Kaduna, you understand what I'm saying the more. In Zamfara, what happened in Zamfara is that AP, I don't want to mention parties, but the two major political parties are always almost at a par in that state. So, and that's why you have young people from both camps clashing against each other. As well as in Kaduna, the same thing happened. Now, if you look at Kaduna, what again is happening in Kaduna is that the old conflict in Kaduna state, the ethnic divide in Kaduna, is fueling the conflict, supporting the dominant two political parties. So these are how we're seeing the conflict and the issues playing out.
Thank you. This is really a very disturbing trend. Cardinal Onaikon, over the past 2 decades, I've followed closely the work of the Justice, Development and Peace Commission of the Catholic Church, which has been trying to introduce a civic culture, tolerance, peaceful conduct of electoral behavior in this country. But the reports we are hearing is that that's not what appears to be winning. What's your own view and what's your own concerns about these trends?
Thank you very much, Prof. Hearing Mr. Nwokolo and his analysis, which is almost as brilliant as that of my daughter there. One has every reason to be worried, because if elections are all about giving the people a chance to make up their minds, what's the meaning of all these scenarios, counter scenarios, gunmen both known and unknown, bandits, the people coming from activists to become cult people, the whole scenario of violence, for me, goes completely against the whole idea of a free and fair election. And it is a pity, it is very sad when we find that we cannot, whether you call names or not, there are two major political parties in Nigeria up till recently. APC, PDP, let me mention them. There is nothing unknown about them. There's nothing unknown about them. The two parties that have ruled Nigeria since this new dispensation. 1999 until now. And for me, which is also the idea behind JDPC, like you can see, the name itself says Justice, Development and Peace. It all boils down to what do we mean by politics? And what should be the ideas and the intentions driving people who want to run for political office? If politics is a prize that you struggle to capture, and such a battle that anything goes provided you win, then obviously what you are saying now becomes the normal way. You want to outdo one another both in violence as well as in deceit. Deceit among the politicians, they deceive one another, it's obvious. But the worst of all is that all of them try to deceive the rest of us. Question of truth doesn't feature highly, not to talk of honesty. Now, maybe I'm talking like a preacher, but I do believe that if we don't go to this truth, we are not going to get anywhere. We're not going to get anywhere. And it all boils down to people are seeking political office not so that they can serve the people, but so that they can become big men and everybody will serve them. The church, the religion to which I belong, and our founder, who is not only a man but also God, said it very well, that he has come not to be served but to serve. And that among you, those who are your leaders should be your servants. We take that very, very seriously. If the intention of the political candidates is to serve the people, why must they kill in order to serve the people? My own feeling, therefore, is that the rest of us who are watching, please watch them. Those who are promoting violence don't deserve to rule you. No matter how much money they have for renting crowds and for putting posters on television and all that. People who have not shown in the process of their campaign, who have shown that they are just ready, the word they keep using is, the important thing is to win the election. Meaning you can do whatever it takes. You must win. Or you can't afford to lose this election. They are not talking about what is happening about Nigeria. No. We must win. And if it comes to we must win by all means, it means if it takes violence to win, they will do it. If it takes bribing all the poor ANEC officers to win, you do it. And therefore, if it starts in one case, the other will reply, and they begin to have competition in all these very, very antisocial activities. That's what I am seeing now. Is it possible that the Nigerian people believe that it is possible to have rulers who will serve them and who will tell them the truth, and whom they can then put their heads together and say, good, you come and be our leader. The priority is the people, not the political party candidate. But today, as you can see, it is the political the candidates that are the priority in the whole discussion. The people don't seem to count. We don't seem to count. Whereas really, it is the people who should count what the people want. And let nobody tell me that the people do not know what they want or they can't agree. They are certainly agree that they are suffering. Mm-hmm. That one is clear, that we are suffering. So I believe that it's 2023 is not too far away, but 4 months away. We have a problem on our hands. We have inherited a concept of politics that has refused to go away. Politics as capturing territory, capturing price. And when they give the candidate a flag to go, and they are supposed to go on a battle and win. And win. We are not supposed to go and tell the people, I want to rule you, do you want me? No. Because the whole idea of election is you explain to the people how you intend to serve them. Then you let them tell you during the election whether they want you or not. Is that the name of the game right now? It is not. And I don't think that kind of idea is sheer utopia, because there are other countries where it is working, where politicians make themselves available for service and observe a minimum of good and civic, what were we using?
Civic culture.
Civic culture. And the contest goes on. Some win, some lose, but that's not the end of the day. It is, like they say, it's not a do or die affair. And so, is it too late to expect it? The so-called third force, are they changing the narrative of the concept of politics? And
we'll come back to the fact first.
and is that possible in this, the period left? It's very, very difficult to think. My fear is we've had an idea. If you ask the ordinary villager what they understand as politics and election, it is that of those who have the power, the money, the clout to capture power. Once they capture the power, maybe a few people will get crumbs from the table. The rest of us will be left the way we are. I'm sorry, I am not very positive.
No, you are an analyst, among other things, Your Eminence. Thank you so much, Cardinal. And I think we've retained here two main messages, which is that first and foremost, offering to serve in politics is to serve the people, not to be their masters. Nigerians, shine your eyes, make sure those you are voting for are coming in to serve your interests. Second message from the Cardinal: if you see somebody engage in behavior that's violent or unbecoming, ensure that they do not get your votes. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Viewers, you are welcome back to the program. Nigeria Decides 2023. And today, thanks to the National Working Group on Peace Building and Governance, we are trying to discuss vital concerns about the elections, the emergence of violence, the disappearance of a level playing ground for candidates in the elections. And we feel that it is important that peaceful atmosphere is the prerequisite to a successful election. For that reason, we've invited 10 young Nigerians actively working to promote peace to participate in this program. And a few of them will now ask questions to the panel. Can we start with you, please?
Scientist Madfa Uzachkristella Sali, and here's my question. How can we promote civil culture and harmony in the 2023 elections? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jonah Akufai, and my question is specifically to Cynthia. I just want to ask, how can we build trust in terms of institutions like INEC and also our security agencies? Because you find out that most times you go for elections and at the end of the day, they say they cancel election in certain area, and this also breeds violence in some instances. Yeah, inconclusive election, and funny enough, there won't be violence in those areas. So how can we build trust in terms of INEC and also our security agencies? Because sometimes these things happen, and the budget we spend on security, we need them to nip these violences before they even happen. So how can we build those trust between those two agencies? Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. Yes, can we go over to you?
Okay. My question goes to you.
Your name first.
Cynthia Amabu, Livinus Tenenge. Please, most violence arrives because people feel there's no justice, there's no fairness, there's no equity during elections. Are we very sure this our INEC is going to give us equity, fairness, and justice during this 2023 general election?
Thank you. From behind there, yeah.
Good day. My name is Emmanuel Achomi. My question goes to Dr. Mokolo. I want to ask, how would you inculcate data-driven election campaigns towards affecting the lives of people living with disability and special needs? Would you in any way find such things possible to get them included in the electioneering process? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody with a question for the Cardinal? No. Okay. Thank you so much for these very useful questions that you have raised. Cynthia, there's a lot of concern. Is INEC ready? Will they do the needful? Over to you.
This is a big question, and I don't work with INEC. But I think it's always important to give INEC the benefit of doubt. Just looking at recent elections, INEC did conduct the elections in Ekiti and Osun, and we saw how the process was a marked improvement from previous elections. However, as we engage the next elections, we need to engage from a point of cautious optimism. Why? We can't, as a people, sleep on our responsibility of civic vigilance. And that's because while we expect INEC to do the needful, the way we build trust is by continuous engagement and questioning to the Electoral Commission to get answers, not by spreading fake news or disinformation. But where we have issues of concern, we must reach out to the appropriate authorities to get the right question. And we can engage INEC on different platforms. That's one. The other part is we have worry within the civil society space around issues around independence, right? And because the political class, there's a lot of pressure on INEC. There were questions around appointments of some of the resident electoral commissioners that citizens raised, but those questions or those concerns were not addressed. So we have some people who we may not necessarily trust their character and their integrity. But elections is beyond 1 or 2% now. So what do we do as a people? Because we expect INEC to act by the rules, but now I will throw back the questions as a people. We have important tools. One, the new Electoral Act gives us some levels of power to hold INEC to account. But the only way we can hold them to account is to empower ourselves with information. So first, I would advise Nigerians, read the new law, read the new elections guidelines, because that is how we can draw up our checklist on the questions we want to ask INEC at the national, at the state, and the local government level. When we begin to ask the right question from a point of information, INEC will have no other option than to do the right thing. But we also let the political class that we are informed, because they put the pressure of INEC. But if we as a people hold on to what is important and demand accountability, would also let the political class know that the people are watching. And I think it begins with how we arm ourselves with information. So that would be my question on trust. Trust is not overnight. I will not say trust INEC 100%. I would rather say, like they say, equity aids the vigilant, not the indolent. This is a point and a moment for us to be vigilant, but from a point of information, arm ourselves with the law, with the guidelines, and ask INEC the questions we need to ask as we engage the process. The other question around how do we promote civic culture? I think I'll join that question with the issues around equity and fairness, the question around the process. Civic culture is, thankfully, that's the conversation we're having today. And they say culture is a way of life, meaning that we learn it and we practice it. And for the elections, what will I say civic culture is? One, our ability to tolerate each other, so political tolerance. regardless of which party or candidate we support, we need to understand that the other person or the other side's opinion is as important as our opinion. So we cannot force our opinion on other people. And that culture begins with how we engage on these platforms. So when parties or candidates are bandying divisive sentiments, we as a people, we need to play differently. We need to play different kind of politics by saying, I understand your opinion is different from mine. Let's debate the issue. So for this, for me, I believe civic culture, the best way to promote it is to start preaching tolerance. Tolerance across religious divide, ethnic divide, and political the political orientation. Let's preach tolerance. Let's begin to also preach Nigeria's the unity of our people. But most time people say we are not. What is one Nigeria? What is one Nigeria begins with first that we are humans existing in this geographical space. So even if we say we don't agree with each other, the fact that we are humans is what unifies us first, unless you don't think you're human. But if you believe that you're human and you live in this geographical space, then there is that spirit of oneness. And from that, I believe we can start promoting culture because, like I say, it's a way of life. It's a gradual practice that begins to understand that your opinion is as important as mine. And my professor used to say, human rights is, I can spin my hand, but as long as it does not hit the other person's nose, we're fine. But when you start to move your hands, I have the freedom to move, but you're hitting the next person, then that freedom becomes a threat to the freedom of the next person. So we have the freedom to exercise our opinions, but we must do that with respect for the other person's opinion. And that for me is the core culture of the whole idea of civic culture, tolerating each other. But I think the most important is participating actively from a point of information. Honestly, we all have that important role to promote information based on what is right. A lot of us are spreading fake news and it's not helping our polity at all. And the issue around equity and fairness, I think that is where we make demand on INEC. How do we promote equity and fairness? That there is strict compliance to the rule and uniformity of practice. Because to promote equity means that every side has the freedom to exercise their franchise. And for these elections, when it comes to our process, INEC has that responsibility to ensure that there is compliance to the law and there is uniformity of practice across board so that one side will not feel that another rule applies to the other side. Because if we apply the rule across board to all sections and to all sectors, it creates that sense of fairness and inclusion and no one feels that they've been excluded. And I think this is where we make the demand on INEC. But INEC will not, it's not wishful thinking. We can't sit down and say INEC will do right, which is why at the end I say vigilance is key. We need to make that demand on the electoral process by making sure INEC acts. For the political parties, we need to call the political class to order. Let's not give them any excuse. No time to give excuses for politicians. We need to hold them to account if we want to see equity and fairness in our process. I don't know.
That's a brilliant expose of the notion of civic culture. That is all about the citizen.
Yeah.
And the first responsibility of the citizen is to know the rules, to know the process, to know their rights, and to know the duties of their citizens, but of other bodies that have a role in that process. Secondly, having known the rules, it is important that you make sure you advocate that every other stakeholder plays their own role correctly. That's the vigilance that Cynthia is talking about. The question on data-driven elections, Dr. Nwokolo, I think it's been raised specifically in relation to persons with disability,
Yes.
but I think it's important to raise the question of the importance of data in more general terms before zeroing in on persons with disabilities.
Okay. First, let me say that if I even want to go the other way, to say that issue of safeguarding or trying to protect people with disability as it pertains to this election is more of a core governance thing. So we need to look at it from a very holistic angle, which is governance. And governance here, we look at it from both from a formal governance and from informal governance. If I may ask a question, I'm sure all of us, either we took the lift or we took the staircase. So when we construct our buildings, do we put it in our mind that there are people who may not be able to climb staircase, so we need to make platforms and rooms for them? both in our mosques and our churches. We don't even put those things. I'm not indicting the church at all. But it shows the way...
My church has ramp.
Yes.
So it shows the way we as a people are not putting these things into consideration. So if we start enforcing it even from our homes to make sure that members of our family who are disabled in one way are properly taken care of, then it's easier for us to enforce the government to take care of them. I remember I monitored the Kenyan election, the first Kenyan election in 2016. I saw the way Kenya was able to organize the election in such a way that people with disability were given room, even the places they went to vote. They made sure that they didn't take them to places where they needed to climb staircases and all that. It shows a society that cares. So I think we might start from that. Then to issue of data, data cannot be underemphasized in anything. As of last week, we came out to say that 133 million of us are poor.
Extreme poverty.
So it shows that with data, you're able to plan. Countries that keep data are able to plan. So for instance, if you live in Abuja and today 20 women gave birth, every city will now know that in 6 years' time, those kids will be going to school. So how are you planning to make sure that those kids, that while it's time to go to school, you're able to make that room for them, to provide to them to go to school? Every city or every country should know when people will turn to 18. In most countries, as you're turning 18, they are sending you an email or a letter to your house to say you're turning 18, you are now old enough to vote. So that's why someone like me, I don't believe there should be something like continuous voters registration. It should be something that is constant. Once you turn 18 today, tomorrow you should go and register. It shouldn't be a room you open 3 months and ask all of us to file into one primary school and fight each other, and then you close it out. No, it should be continuous. It should be everyday thing. So with that, you're able to know people who get a certain age to vote will automatically go in and enroll. So this is how you keep data. And when people transfer from one place to the other, they're able to move to the next place. So these are part of the processes of making sure that election is free and fair. So I think that's where I'll answer this.
Thank you, Doctor. One final issue we want to address in this discussion is the whole question of this specificity of this election, which has to do about a third force. As we know, all of Nigeria's contentious elections, 1964, 1983, 1993, and the last 3 elections have all been between 2 major parties. And in recent years, it has been between the PDP on the one hand and currently the APC. Now there is the Labour Party, which is making waves as a credible third party. Does that make it more worrying for the elections, Cardinal, or is it just more opportunity? How would you view that? Are you worried about it?
I am not worried about it. I would have been worried if there was no third force. If we continued with the, as it were, assumption that we have no choice, that we just have to accept either PDP or APC. I speak like this because, and even though we are on the air, I don't see any difference between the two, basically, in terms of how they understand political power. And what has worried me all along is that neither PDP nor APC has apologized or shown any remorse for the way they have run affairs in our country until now. It's typical Nigeria. We know very well that people are stealing, but there are no thieves. We have been told that hundreds, millions of barrels of our oil have been stolen, but there are no thieves. Similarly, there's a lot of bad government. We see the effect on us, but nobody, no group accepts responsibility. I would have been ready to consider If there was a sign that, okay, we didn't do it too well before, we are now prepared to do it differently. Instead, what I'm hearing is we shall build on what we have done before. PDP says we shall go back to where we left off in 2015. They seem to forget that if they had done things very well, many of us would not have voted Buhari. That's a part. I'm very, very frank in these matters. Now APC is telling us we are going to continue the way we are. The question then, are Nigerians ready to continue in that direction? And I'm feeling that, and I'm praying that Nigeria will say, no, we want something else, even though we don't know what it is so clearly. We are being told that in 2015, we said we wanted to change. Yes, we wanted to change. We wanted something better. That our hopes and aspirations was as it were, betrayed in the last 7 years is no reason why we should stop aspiring to something better. Now, where is this something better? Obi seems to be the front line in the difference, but there are other groups now. There are other political parties who are speaking, and we are hoping that between now and February, political sagacity and we bring up some kind of rearrangement of the situation on ground. It will not be a bad idea if Nigerians have a choice to choose between 3 people instead of between 2.
Thank you, Cardinal. Cynthia, what's your view? Any concerns about a third force?
No, I'm actually excited that we're having more competition. The beauty of elections is that there is competition between ideas and the people can then choose. But when we are always limited to choose between just 2 options, it's always worrisome. And this is a multi-party democracy, which is why it's important that we're having more groups springing up. There are different levels of third forces now. There's a more popular idea of a third force, but in different regions, there are new third forces emerging at governorship levels. So beyond the presidential elections, at the state levels, you're also having new forces emerging at different states. So I'm happy we're seeing this level of contest. However, the worry is in how we go about the contestation, which is why I said at the heart of this is tolerance. That we should not worry that we have people competing around issues. What we should worry about is that we are promoting the issues we care about and looking for the candidates that best aligns with those issues, and we focus on that without going after the other parties or the other ideas, because then it means we're not tolerating people. So why should people tolerate us if we cannot tolerate people? So I like the idea is making our competition more. What we're hoping to see in the next month now is for the candidates, for whichever the candidates are. You now know that there's competition. Now, can we compete on the issues? Can we debate more around the issues so that we can choose better who best represents our interests? I think for me, that is what is important. It's beautiful. This is democracy, but we need to review the way we are competing around the issues.
Dr. Nwokolo, you have just 30 seconds.
So I think this is the right way to go. The more the merrier. But most importantly, what is good here is that if we can tie this to free and fair election, it means that we have an opportunity to vote out the party the next time.
Thank you, viewers. It's been an exciting discussion on the importance of having harmony and civic culture guiding the 2023 elections. We've expressed our concerns about some of the worrying signs we are seeing, people being blocked from rally grounds, access to media, or just moving around their cities to campaign, issues about thuggery and violence. And the point I think our panel has insisted on is that elections is about choice, and choice is expressed in a context of peace. They've emphasized that that peace requires that citizens, we as citizens, play our role, that we know the rules, that we respect them, and that we demand that all other stakeholders respect those rules. Finally, we've discussed the specificity of the 2023 elections, the fact that more forces are emerging than has been the case with previous elections might be an opportunity for Nigerians to have a wider set of choice to choose from, and that may finally give us the change we want. And the change we want, as the Cardinal made very clear, is for a political party that will obtain political power to serve the interests of the Nigerian people. We pray for that. We work for that. Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you next time.